All right. Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Thursday. Wait a minute. Is it Thursday? Yes, it is. Thursday night update, May 30th, 2024, 10:45 p.m. here, California time. Friday. Guess what? Friday is tomorrow. Goodness. And what do we have going on tomorrow? The potential for some auroras out here. Again, at some decent locations here. Let's get the latest earthquake on the map here real quick. 4.4 stirring up extreme western China, it looks like. Latest earthquake there on the globe. We'll check out the latest activity here in just a little bit, but I want to cover space weather activity here real quick. Bells are off, microphone is on, so we are good to go. We're looking at a potential G2 class solar storm here tomorrow night. So anytime after nighttime tomorrow for Friday night might be a good time to go out and see if you can see the auroras up there across the northern horizon. Now, this is not expected to be a event what we've seen similar this month here a couple weeks back there with the historic event. That was a G5 class storm. This is a G2 expected forecasted storm. Of course, this could be, maybe a little bit higher depending on the BZ component there of the interplanetary magnetic field that allows a solar wind stream to flow in. But the expected time frame, the brunt of this, tomorrow night between 1821 and forward, it looks like. By the way, the current UTC time is about 05 in the morning, 05:48 on the 31st. So, 05:48 puts us right about here. So anytime tomorrow after dark, it may come in a little bit early, super late afternoon, early evening, but keep your eyes open here tomorrow night. Anytime it gets dark there after after sunset. After that, things calm down here. But this is from a pretty massive X flare, long duration X flare that blasted off from the sunspot there on the southeastern quadrant of the sun. Now look here real quick at the potential view line. Shows roughly the northern tier states getting in on most of the action. Probably not going to see it down into California, Carolinas and stuff like that like we've seen last time. But either way, it's a decent aurora event coming at us, and we'll continue to watch that and see what happens. It seems like lately things have been stronger than expected, so we'll watch this for tomorrow night. Far as the current ongoing activity, and there's your G2 class storm over the next couple days here. As far as the ongoing solar weather activity and flaring department, seen a couple C flares, a little low-grade M flare right here recently. There's that large X flare, right? Long duration, long CME right here. This is a pretty powerful CME. Peaked up, not a huge X flare, but this was a long duration X flare event, and that did produce a massive amount of plasma from that CME, and it is slightly headed in the Earth direction. We're just going to barely get a glancing blow from that CME. So check it out tomorrow. We'll definitely be updating some stuff here. 3697. Yes, that's a newly named sunspot. Not a new sunspot, though. This is the former sunspot 3664. I really wish they would just keep it the same name because this did not just pop out of the blue. This has been the same sunspot here for almost a month. So I don't know why whoever thought about renaming these sunspots. My personal advice here is that I wish they would keep this as the same name as long as they stay, as long as it stays like pretty much committed here. It didn't die off, obviously. This is still 3664 in my mind. You can name it, 5000 if you want, but this is the sunspot that produced the auroras of a lifetime out here. We've seen the auroras down in Northern California, Southern California, Puerto Rico, all over the place from 3664. The last time it was out here on the Earth-facing side of the sun, weeks ago. The historic aurora event that many will remember, many missed, but hopefully we'll get another chance here. You never know when. But yeah, look at that magnetic structure there, still holding steady in terms of the potential further escalation of flaring activity out here. It does look promising. This thing just doesn't want to die. It's holding pretty steady. So we'll continue to watch that sunspot there as it's venturing further into the Earth-directed view. And of course, anything further Earth-directed will be ultimately more geo-effective in terms of the auroras. This sunspot up here, I'm a little disappointed. And I said it this morning, I said it last night. Things have taken a turn for the worse up here across this sunspot, degrading massively. There's not a whole lot of hope here in terms of seeing any stronger flaring from this sunspot up here. And that is sunspot number 3691. Pretty much saying goodbye right in front of us. I don't think we'll see anything. Maybe some sea flare activity, but that's about it. The main focus right now is on this sunspot right here. Former sunspot 3664. Aside from that, little wimpy ones out here, doesn't look like much. Overall threat right now, 35% chance for an X flare, M flare at 75, and of course the C flare activity, we're obviously above that level at 99% chance. And yeah, we'll continue to watch this. We'll see when that CME activity kicks up tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening. And of course we'll cover this in the morning update, Friday morning update. Flaring activity right now, the UV filter array here showing a little bit of flaring, some C flare activity here from our sunspot of interest. But aside from that, we'll wait for the show tomorrow, right? Iceland, what is going on up here in Iceland? Well, we've got an ongoing eruption going on. That's what's going on here. Morning time out here across Iceland right now. Local time 5:51. Is that UTC time or 05:50? Well, it's UTC time. It looks like. So I'm not for sure about the. I'm not for sure what the Iceland local time is right now, but it's morning time. It looks like. Get up, everyone. Go to work. Got some good fountaining going on here across a couple different craters here of the Iceland area. A little bit of downturn, right, in terms of the volume of magma that has been produced. As expected, right? We're not expecting this to continue at full volume output for weeks at a time, but mainly just for a couple days. So this should continue to die down. The latest update here from the Icelandic Met Office, the meteorological office here, even states that significantly they've seen a significant reduce in the activity of volume there at the volcano since yesterday. This is put out today. Lava flows mainly in the area around Hagafell. Of course, we did see some lava movement here on the western side of Grindavik while it was at its extreme output flow. But look what happened. Those barriers, man, those guys are lifesavers out there, producing some life-saving measures there across this area of Grindavik, protecting the community. Of course, evacuations out here, but ultimately affecting the future out here by preventing the lava flow in town. So these guys did an excellent job with these barriers out here. There's some former lava flows, as you've seen. One fissure opening up here inside the barrier, North Grindavik area. There's always some concern, right, that things could open up further down south here, because obviously it has happened here recently. But so far with this most recent event, things have opened up north. Hagafell northeastward here, and that's where we want to keep it. We don't want to see it open up here south. So yeah, obviously we'll continue to watch that, right? A lot of areas that need to be watched and monitored. Iceland, obviously, I think we reached our peak level in terms of the inflation, the output flow, and now it's just a matter of watching what's in the forecast, the future, whether we're going to see another huge inflation event there across the area of the rift zones, or we're going to see this die out. Well, it's a new phase, a new stage, so to speak, and it's very interesting, so we'll keep an eye on that. South Dakota, earthquake country. what's going on up there in South Dakota, beautiful state of South Dakota. I'm kind of looking at my home territory in the future here very soon, I think. Northern Kansas, Nebraska, maybe even South Dakota. I'm not one of the folks out here that would complain about cold weather at all. I absolutely love the cold weather. Bring on minus 30 and I will be outside chopping firewood for a fire. So don't throw cold weather on me. That does not deter me from going up there. But this is my area of interest here in terms of relocating very soon. Not even joking. California, it sucks. It's too hot out here. Too hot. 100 degrees here in May, and it's supposed to be 110 degrees or so next week. And that's not the feels like temperature. That's the air temperature. The feels like may even be way above that. All right, so earthquake. Okay. 3.7. Not a big deal, but it was felt by a few folks out here, and quite a few folks wondering what's going on out here in South Dakota. Why do we have earthquakes out here? Or, anything to do with Yellowstone? Obviously not. Yellowstone is much further to the west. Oh, where's my earthquakes? I wonder if I got rid of it. I think I did. Stand by here for a second. I wanted to show you guys historical data, and I think I closed out the window, so I got to redo it again. Let's go. Yeah, we can go 2.5 and above. Since the year 1000, I guess. Do a little bit of time traveling out here for South Dakota, beautiful state of South Dakota. And I don't want to cover too much out here, but just this area of interest. Obviously, we got mountain ranges out here, fault systems, but I do want to cover this specific area and see what we got for 2.5 and above, okay? So 32 earthquakes here in the historical catalog of the USGS. Not a big number. There is the 3.7. Our last earthquake of interest was a 3.2 just south of here, back in August of 2022. So largest magnitudes of 4.5, much further to the east here, back in 1911. So while this is not common to see earthquake activity out here, it is possible. Obviously, the North American plate here, obviously underneath some strain. I've been mentioning this here in the past couple update videos. Who would have thought New Jersey, right? Earthquake activity out here. Well, there's mountain ranges out here, right? Fault systems, obviously. Old fault systems. But in the middle of, this is pretty much the North American Craton area, which is a relatively stable landmass out here over the last few millions of years, while everything else around it deforms and forms up mountain ranges and rift zones and whatnot. So it's quite rare to see earthquake activity in the middle of the Craton, but it does happen. And this earthquake that struck out there today, coming in about 12 kilometers deep at 3.7 for a magnitude. 4.2 back in 1961, 3.3 back in 2011, 3.0 back in 2017. So earthquake activity can happen. Our little human time scale, 100 years of living, whoo, that's a long time, right? Not really. Geologically speaking here, millions of years or so, earthquake activity can occur no matter where you're at out here. And this is only since the USGS has been keeping records. And it looks like the oldest magnitude is back in 1895 in the Black Hills Gold for a 3.3. Not a big earthquake, but they do keep track of these unusual earthquakes out here because it's obviously in the North American Craton out here. And that's a ways away from the plate boundary where everything else deforms and warps and moves around and adjusts. So, a little bit of activity out there. And a few folks did report feeling it. Not a huge amount. Population density out there is quite rare, which is what I'm looking for. I love it. South Dakota, here I come. I guess we'll see, right? I don't know. A lot of people like to be around big populated areas, things to do. No, thank you. Please exclude me from those events. All right, I'm going to move on before I go too far off the graph here in terms of craziness. Mount St. Helens. What do we got here? A couple earthquakes stirring up around the summit area once again, it looks like, throughout the day today. This has been kind of an ongoing deal. About 6 kilometers deep, so that tells me there's a recharging of the system underneath the area. This is not anything to worry about right now, but obviously we got maybe potentially a recharging of the system there around Mount St. Helens in terms of magma accumulation. I created a new word right there. If you look at the last week or so of earthquake activity, we got 25 earthquakes around Mount St. Helens. And one could actually fearmonger this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to throw up a thumbnail here. 25 earthquakes hit Mount St. Helens in a week. That could probably bring me in 1 million views, but I'm not going to do that. I'm more of a realistic, factual information guy here. Geologist that provides the facts out here, not fear-mongering. So these earthquakes are not really anything of concern here. They're very small, very tiny earthquakes and occurring at depth for the most part. This area did see some earthquake activity here last year. A couple months of swarming, a little bit more than what we're seeing right now, and that kind of forced out a little statement there from the USGS back then, and they stated that they believe the magma system, the reservoir below, is recharging because of these deep earthquakes. So obviously we're still seeing it here months later, and we'll continue to watch that, but for now, really nothing of any major concern there across that area. Pretty deep earthquake activity. California. I wish I could say my former homeland state, but I can't. I'm stuck out here right now. I'm stuck. That's a bad word, right? To be stuck somewhere. 2.8 Northern California, southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. This area has seen quite a bit of tremor here recently, so let's see what we got for tremor activity into the Cascadia subduction zone. Still seeing some activity. Goodness, what's going on there? 311 epicenters underneath Northern California. So that tells me right there that things are on the move here at the southern end of the Cascadia, and ultimately, got to watch that, right? This means that things are being subducted further underneath this plate, underneath the North American plate here, and that's adding stress at the surface level of the subduction zone. That increases the likelihood of the larger quake activity out here across this area. So we'll continue to watch that. We're obviously seeing a little bit of earthquake movement here recently across this area. Little one just off the coast there of southern Oregon. Very interesting earthquake, 12 kilometers deep, 2.0. And of course the megathrust area, right? One could sit here and say, yeah, look out, here comes the big one. But we never really know. We just really never know when the big earthquake is going to happen out here. But we can look at, hopefully, some telltale signs. Once the big one does hit, we can look back and say, look what we've seen out here. We've seen minimal tremor activity for a year or so, and then elevated tremor activity just prior to the big 9-pointer kicking up here, or at least a partial rupture here in the Cascadia subduction zone. Research and studying, right, is key to hopefully one day predicting earthquakes. But you can't predict an earthquake right now. No one can predict an earthquake. I hate to burst that bubble. There's quite a few channels out here that say, oh, I'm going to predict a 5-pointer out here in California here in the next week. Well, actually, they don't use the next week or so. They say the next 30 days. But anything can happen in 30 days, right? That time period. That's crazy. Let's be realistic here. If you're going to predict something, let's use realistic, common sense approach. Not a year from now, we're going to see a big earthquake down here in California. Okay. All right. I'm off the rocker right now. I need to focus on what I'm doing here. Bay Area, fairly quiet. Southern California, fairly quiet as well. Minimal earthquake activity. No major swarm going on. Someone asked me about the Yellowstone. I do want to cover that real quick. Let me bring up the Yellowstone activity. Oh goodness, let's go back to previous day. And okay, so this kind of looks similar to what I seen the other night. There was a little sequence of steady, I don't know what that is. It's pretty steady. And then it dwindles out. That almost looks like an adjustment, a tuning adjustment on this seismograph station. Now that showed up here earlier this morning on Norris Junction and Norris Museum as well. So that leads me to believe, a little bit more prominent there on this station, but that leads me to believe that this is some type of instrument adjustment on there. Okay, that's today. Now if you go back here to, I think it was about 2 days ago here on this station, there's a couple different stations: West Boundary, Purple Mountain, Holmes Hill. Now if you look here, some of these readings are different. Well, the reading's the same, but the time frame is different. One comes a little bit sooner, one comes a little bit later. If you look at these, and I haven't heard back from the guy I talked to about what's going on here on the seismograph readings, but I think it's some type of local interference here at the surface area, and that's why we're seeing it sometimes sooner in an area compared to not. If you think about this, if this was volcanic activity or magma movement, this would show up at the same time. At the same time, these are very local seismograph stations. So whatever went on here at this day a couple days ago is an interference pattern. Whether it's, I don't know. I can't say exactly what it is. Somebody obviously knows. But it's not magma movement, because magma movement would show up equally across this area. And if you think about it, all of this area is generally close together. So that would show up across the majority of the park if this was earthquake activity, magma movement, fluid movement. So this is some type of instrument network interference in my study, and it just doesn't show up here locally to the east. If this was something going on underneath the ground, we would see it show up. Yes, it showed up across 5 stations out here, but anything can show up across 5 stations, whether it's wind, thunderstorms. It is kind of getting towards that time frame here where we see thunderstorm activity show up out here. But nothing to worry about. Well, I've come to the conclusion that this is just interference out here. And that's my verified report on it. And wind, a lot of wind going on up here. We'll see these thunderstorms fire up in the afternoon and die down. A lot of wind kicking up out here. And I pinpointed this time and time again throughout the years on this channel. And the summertime, man, you get those thunderstorms brewing up in Montana. And I just seen it on the local Montana news here recently. Friend of mine was showing it on their Facebook, and yeah, thunderstorms pop up like crazy in the mountains up there. So when they do pop up, obviously I like to show on the windy map, the wind speeds and how they affect the seismograph stations out here. Again, magma movement, any type of huge earthquake activity underneath a super volcano would be showing up across the park. I can guarantee you, and I promise you that. All right, went way out there left field. Where are we at right now? Hawaii. I landed myself out here in Hawaii. One of these days I'll get out here. I just, a little expensive to get out there. Kilauea Volcano, a couple earthquakes there at the crater area. Very shallow earthquake activity just below the surface. Let me see here on the volcano hazard site here from the USGS. By the way, the Kilauea Volcano at a yellow advisory, and that's because of the elevated earthquake activity and inflation recently here. Latest one shows a 2.0. Not a big earthquake at all. Very small earthquake, 0.4. Very small and very shallow earthquake. So we do have some interesting activity taking place here, but not a huge swarm going on. Just some very small earthquake activity. in the last 12 hours. And most of that here in the last 6 hours or so, as you can see on the graph, right? Not a big deal. No major swarm. Obviously, this area is quite inflated, so let's check out the deformation data and see what's going on here. Prior to any eruptive activity, we'll see elevated earthquake activity take place in the area where we may see a magma intrusion or we may see an eruptive event take place. Here's the last month of inflation data. Notice that we peaked out here. Today, I think, we're going back down a little bit. Check out the data here. It looks like we're leveling off here in the last week. Well, this is the last week, but this is the last couple hours here. Elevated. But as we've seen here, stair-stepping ladder event. And it's just a matter of time before we see maximum pressurization here at the summit, where a displacement of magma will occur, or we'll see a new eruption at the summit area, or maybe the upper East Rift Zone. It's up there, and in fact we're at the highest level seen in terms of inflation since 2018. Quite a few years here of steady as she goes upstream here. So a lot of wait and see, a lot of watch and see, right? Someone mentioned that in the comments, right? There's a lot of watch and see what happens, right? Because we don't really know. No one can predict it. No one can predict when an earthquake's going to happen here of sizable levels across California or anywhere in the world, folks. I mean, really, look at, common sense here tells us that. We can look at swarms and stuff like that and maybe get a good indicator where things may be taking place, but predicting earthquakes, zip, that's a big zipper. All right. South Korea, just off the coast here. Well, this is actually Japan, 4.7 from earlier this afternoon. Taiwan seeing a little bit of activity as well in that swarming zone. Still kind of keep an eye on that area, right? If you think about it, this area has seen a lot of earthquake activity. This is the last 30 days, 35 earthquakes, but I guarantee you, just for fun, let's do this. 4.5, and we're going to go back here the last couple months since February. Why not? And we'll take a look at this area of Taiwan, because it has been an area of interest here recently. It's been swarming like crazy. They've seen a 7-pointer, but the sequence of earthquakes that's been taking place out here has been rather odd. We've seen about almost 200 earthquakes above 4.5 and above. The largest one, of course, is going to be that 7.4 earthquake back in April. But we've seen a series of aftershocks following that 7.4, and then it ceased. And then it moved up north here with a new sequence of earthquake swarming. And this area has seen some 8-pointers out here historically. So there's obviously a little concern that this may be leading up to something bigger, but I'm uncertain as to how big right now, because the swarm has gone down. But almost 200 earthquakes out here. That's a lot of activity. And one could say, well, that's just all aftershocks following the 7.4. Well, it didn't match the typical sequence of earthquake swarming following a large earthquake. It migrated, it stopped for a couple weeks, and then it picked up in some big amplitude of earthquakes away from the main 7.4. So similar to what we've seen in Turkey, right? We've seen that large series of earthquakes out there. And it's just, you just never know. So kind of kept an eye on that. We haven't seen anything larger. But obviously it is an area of interest because it's in a major zone of where compression takes place here in terms of plate stress. The Taiwan area is always under the gun out there in terms of larger scale movement. New Zealand? Oh, New Zealand. Is it wintertime down there? I heard it's cold down there. Some deeper activity into the Kermadec Trench of 4.2, fairly deep here. Some, couple of threes, it looks like, underneath North Island. Really nothing major going on there for now. And the world is still spinning. Pretty quiet in terms of large-scale movement, but we'll keep an eye on things, right? That's all we can do right now is watch and wait. So space weather, real quick recap. Looks like we're flaring slightly a little bit in the sea flare category. We'll watch tomorrow for some auroras. Storm Prediction Center, as far as severe weather activity goes, it looks like a little noise going on out here across Texas. Tonight, overnight, well, yeah, this is early morning. Well, tonight and early morning, an enhanced area of severe weather out there across western Texas with some tornado and high wind and hail going on out there in the forecast. This here is for the day on Friday. Pretty large area for slight risk category out here. Some tornado risk, but most of it's going to be some large hail and damaging wind gusts out there. And as you can see here on the day on Saturday, that extends further to the west out there across eastern New Mexico and stuff like that. It does look like we're going to get some monsoonal moisture pulling up here from Mexico into this area, so we'll continue to watch that as well. As you look at the forecast here, got thunderstorms brewing up here across the desert southwest, and there's really not a whole lot of severe weather making patterns out here that I can see in the forecast. So as far as tornado activity goes, it doesn't look like we got any major tornado events out here, which is good. Let's see. Goodness, cold. Keeping it cold here. It hit 100 degrees out here in Northern California today. Hold on a second here. Let's go back here to the windy map. Right now, 73 outside my neck of the woods. Tomorrow, I think we're supposed to be pretty close to 100 degrees as well. 97 outside of Chico here. Close to 100. But next week, goodness, check out these temperatures out here. Let me show you guys next week or so. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock. Check this out. Look at this next week. Now, a lot of folks in Texas, right? Oh, 110, 115 degrees is not that hot. Well, that's the feels like temperature for you guys. But this is the actual air temperature. This is not feels like temperature. You know, this is going to be the actual temperature out here. 113 degrees in Willows, 111. I mean, we're talking about Death Valley temperatures out here. Texas, yeah, gets 100 degrees or so, 105. And then you get this humidity that makes it feel like 110. You know, I'd rather take the humidity over this actual air temperature. They call this a dry heat. Yeah, right. It's like an oven. So, yeah, I'm not looking forward to this at all. 113 in Colusa, 115 degrees at the northern end of the Sacramento Valley. Hello. Goodness. I don't even know. That's, it's Death Valley. Look at that. There's no place on the earth like that. Sacramento Valley and San Joaquin Valley is a huge Death Valley in my book. I can't wait to get out of here. Not even joking. Need to go start me up a GoFundMe account here so I can move up out of here. All right, I'm out of here, folks, for now, at least away from the computer. Seismograph stations here look pretty quiet. Earthquake 3D globe, 2.9 into the New Guinea area, it looks like. We'll continue to keep an eye on the space weather activity and, of course, report back on the Aurora potential for tomorrow night. We'll keep an eye on it and see how far south maybe we'll be able to see it tomorrow. Have a good night and stay safe, everyone. Take care.